Did you know that your hormones are like a symphony? So that even if one of the instruments goes out of tune, it can cause havoc and mess up the whole ensemble. My name is Dr. Sarah, and today I want to talk to you about how stress causes your symphony of hormones to go out of tune, how essential oils can cool down the cortisol, or AKA stress response, and what progesterone has to do with everything. So many of you know that when you think of hormones, you're likely going to think about three of the main amigos, which is estrogen, testosterone, or progesterone. And these are the first chairs in reproductive health, but they have many other vital functions in both sexes. And they're just part of this symphony. There are many underappreciated and amazing players in our whole hormonal orchestra. And from personal experience, just as I said in the intro, we all know what happens when even one of the main instruments goes out of tune. And this is because hormones pack a lot of power within the minuscule amounts that are circulating throughout our bodies. So if one of the notes is off in the band, it can really throw someone's body into this high pitch squeal. Our hormones are strong, but they also exist in a delicate balance, and they can be disturbed by a variety of different things. Things such as inflammation, diet, lifestyle, and most commonly that we all share, stress. And due to the far-reaching effects of hormones, these factors can cause chaos in a variety of the symptoms. So keeping these interruptions to a minimal of these little chemical messengers can help us avoid the mind-body chaos that can cause us such misery. So in this article and video, I want to highlight how hormones are the master conductors in our bodies, how stress can wreak havoc on them, especially on the appearance of one of the most popular players, progesterone, how the stress hormone cortisol is not the bad guy that everybody thinks it is, but we do need to keep tabs on it, and how to support our stress levels to better balance hormonal harmony. And this includes, of course, the use of essential oils. I'm doing the video, so you know essential oils has to come up. And finally, I want to talk just a little bit about how optimizing hormonal balance is done in more of a naturopathic and functional medicine way. So, if you want more information than what I'm going to be providing in this video, in other words, if you want to dig into the details and look at all the biochemical mechanisms and check out the research, be sure to check out the link to the accompanying article that is in the video description. Also within the video description will be additional resources on classes I provide, as well as free resources to educate you more on how to take care of your mind and body health through this new year and beyond. Okay, so first let's talk about how hormones lead to either body harmony or disharmony. So hormones do control and coordinate interactions in the body that are profound, such as metabolism, reproduction, growth and development, responses to all forms of stressors. Yes, our hormones actually are the conductors for that as well, and for mood regulation. So this system-wide impact is made evidenced by the fact that there are hormone receptors all throughout our bodies in areas you might not even expect. Your blood vessels, your kidneys, your pancreas, your heart, and of course your brain all have hormone receptors. And due to the potency of these little tiny chemicals, their production, their transport, their utilization, and removal from our body, it's tightly controlled and regulated. And hormones are very specific. They actually act like a key that opens the door to their exact target tissue because of their precise response and their power. So these robust and precise chemical messengers are also easily swayed. And this can be by various triggers, which include things I already mentioned: lifestyle, but also blood sugar, diet, infections, genetics, the microbiome, our belly bugs, our gut bugs, as well as the microbiome throughout our whole body and in our different organ systems, and chronic levels of stress. They all can cause hormonal disharmony. And this is why any hormonal imbalance can either result in perpetuating, contributing, or causing an array of physical, emotional, and or mental health imbalances. Many In conventional medicine, many people might be treating just the symptom and not even attributing to the fact that there could be some underlying hormonal balances, especially if stress is related, as one of the things they need to look at to alleviate and actually find the balance that they are looking for rather than just continuing to band-aid the symptoms. Now, I have honed in on hormones in the brain because mental health is kind of my jam. And we know that hormones affect our brain based on the way that they interact with different neurotransmitters, as well as the fact that there are receptors in the brain, especially for estrogen. So I actually did a couple of posts and videos on the connection between when estrogen levels decrease as women get older and their levels of estrogen goes down, which is known as menopause. This can cause brain structural changes as well as functional changes. Thankfully, that levels off, and most of that is actually brought back into balance later on. But there's also the concept of what they call perimenopausal rage. And this is when, for some various different reasons, genetics, lifestyle factors, and other triggers, hormones fluctuate wildly with some women before this menopausal transition. And that up and down in hormones can cause really extreme mood changes with their menstrual cycle. And this is known as perimenopausal rage. And if it happens before the start into menopause, some people call that PMS, premenstrual syndrome. So we've gone over this kind of hormonal brain link. And now I kind of want to look at hormones as in the broader picture, right? And especially how stress, which is one of the most common triggers for men and women, all genders alike, whatever you attribute your gender to be, biologically, stress is going to impact everybody. So that is one thing that we have some sort of control over. So let's look at one, how stress can cause a hormone attack, and two, some easy ways to modulate, one of my favorite ways to modulate the stress hormone attack. Okay. So if you're watching this in live time, it's going to be released in the start of 2023. And for the past several years, we've been through a lot of world events. We still are. There's financial repercussions. We're just coming out of the holidays. Many people are in a lot of stress. And again, this is going to contribute to a lot of physical symptoms and hormonal imbalances. Now, over time, unrelenting stress can cause a rise in cortisol, the major stress hormone, and then eventually it can cause dysregulation in cortisol in general. But let's just keep it simple and say how there's this rise in cortisol with initial chronic stress, and it can lead to downregulation of the immune system and inflammatory response if it goes on for a long period of time. What happens is, instead of the body going into this rest, recuperation, growth and development, reproductive mode, it goes into fight or flight, freeze, stress response, all of those other functions where the body is rejuvenating and resilient and wants to reproduce kind of go on the back burner. And cortisol goes up, progesterone and estrogen, two of our favorite amigos, go down. And this is actually called the progesterone steal, is one of the names for it, especially because that what we're saying is kind of the progesterone is stolen to make cortisol rather than making the estrogen and the progesterone. So hormones can go awry. And this is one of the reasons why, if we don't look at stress, it's very hard to get that balance back with estrogen, progesterone, even testosterone, right? Because pregnenolone is the precursor to all of these sex hormones. And those, again, can be kind of swayed over to the side of the stress response. Now, stress isn't the only factor here, but again, we're going to focus on stress because that's something that we all universally go through. And we see that this can really aggravate, especially progesterone, which is the hormone that is also very calming. It affects the GABA neurotransmitters. So it's kind of like this dual feed forward cycle, right? We're reducing the neurotransmitter that's calming and the effect of the progesterone on the brain. And at the same time, we're more stressed. So yikes, it's a feed forward cycle. Now, cortisol, the stress hormone, was deemed public enemy number one, and everybody's talking about how do we decrease cortisol, da 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 da. But it's gotten kind of a bad rep because if you didn't have cortisol, we wouldn't survive. Cortisol is very important for a lot of different functions. It utilizes the fuel that we need to run from dangerous threats, like demanding bosses, sick kids, nasty comments on our social media feed, coming off the holidays. Cortisol helps us get through all these different stresses along with other stress neurotransmitters. And it's actually during that time that the acute stress, we actually need those interactions because our immune cells, I'm going off on a little tangent here, but our immune cells actually have stress neurotransmitters in them. And that is why somebody that is under acute stress, their kind of immune system is kept on the down low until after, like, say, a student takes this major exam that's been very stressful, all of a sudden they get sick, because eventually what ends up happening is that catches up on them and their immune system has the ability to recover and then deal with it. That being said, going back to cortisol and some of its functions, some of the things it does is it manages how your body uses carbs, fats, and proteins. It keeps your inflammation down. It regulates your blood pressure. It increases your blood sugar. Again, when someone is in a major stress, they need to be running. They need to be getting away from the danger. So we need glucose to fuel that and the muscle energy. It controls your sleep and wake cycle. So you need cortisol to feel energy, and it regulates, it kind of has this dual relationship with melatonin. And I actually have a post coming up about that kind of interaction between melatonin and cortisol, so stay tuned. And it also boosts your energy so you can handle stress afterwards. So we don't want to get our cortisol down to zero. We want to balance, and we don't want all of our stress to just be pumping out cortisol and robbing us of progesterone and estrogen either. So we need this balance. Everything in the body is about balance, right? And stress itself actually has positive effects too. We don't want to just get rid of stress. We need stress. It can sharpen our brains and our bodies and make us even more resilient. So we need a little bit of stress in our life. We need this kind of hormetic, what they call balancing stressors, to, again, build our bodies up. But when we're bombarded with stress and overwhelm, like we've been in the last few years, and when we don't have the capacity to recover, we really need to focus on things that can tune down that stress response. So that's where a little olfaction, right, our sense of smell, fortification, can come in. And this is where we talk about the cortisol cool down and progesterone revival with essential oils. So one of the things that we want to look at is when cortisol levels are high, how to get those cortisol levels and the stress response to go down so that the estrogen and progesterone can be produced again in more of a balanced ratio. One of the things, well, essential oils actually do 9 things for the stress response, 9. They reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that's been shown in several small studies, but they have been impressive. They modulate brain signals. So neurotransmitters are impacted by stress. They shift our brain waves. They calm our emotions. They enhance cognition. They support cellular physiology, so helping with the actual body responses to stress. They work directly on our emotional brain because it's our sense of smell that goes directly without a relay station to the emotional part of the brain to shift our perception. They evoke memories and transform our mood through their aroma. So they can, again, that's another way they can alter our perception. And they interact with odor receptors throughout the whole body. So it isn't just our sense of smell. We should have odor receptors throughout our whole body, and this fuels our physiology and our biochemical processes. So we have all of these different impacts just by the combination of the aromatic qualities of the essential oil, as well as the biochemical constituents that are found in good quality essential oils. I highlighted it in previous posts, and again, videos, if you want those links, go in the video description, but I talked about small impressive human clinical data on certain essential oils lowering cortisol and actually balancing someone's physiology from stress. These included lavender, clary sage, and bergamot. I also looked at some blends that I use in clinical practice that have helped with clients that I've seen cool down that cortisol response and help them to handle stress better. I have a stress relief blend I use and a joyful blend I use for that. So there's other things that we can do also to cool down cortisol. We have mind-body techniques, laughter, relaxation, lifestyle practices such as movement, things nourishing our body, self-care. These have been shown to influence the epigenetic pathways. Again, that's how our DNA is expressed and what pathways they're going to go down, how our genes are read. And these things, when there's a lot of stress, our genetics get turned on to turn on inflammation in the stress pathways. When we're calming our body, those pathways that are programmed to cool down and be anti-inflammatory and help our body handle stress and just relax and rejuvenate. So these things actually help our body do that. And this is very good when we've been through a lot of emotional upheaval. So we have these mind-body lifestyle practices, we have essential oils, and this can help our hormones exist in this delicate ambiance of happy harmony and keeping everything in tune. And remember, a lot of things can be shaky these days, and we have tools that can help us. We can take deep breaths, we can smell essential oils, we can get some playtime in, turn off our social media feed. Stress is a universal factor. We can't escape it. Again, we need some of it. It's just this extremes that we've been under. And I'm concerned because a lot of people, it just keeps piling on, right? We really haven't had a chance to rest and recuperate. So we need some additional tools to get us through this. Now, the cool thing with naturopathic and functional medicine is that we look at the whole body and the whole person. So if someone comes in with an emotional issue as well as with a hormone issue, if I am narrowing in on helping that person with their main complaint, I'm going to kind of help them with everything because again, one thing affects everything else. And the way that we're looking at it is I'm not just looking at that symptom, I'm looking at what is this underlying thing that is causing someone's hormones as well as brain to kind of be inflamed. And that could be stress. It could be all of the different lifestyle factors we discussed. They could have genetic variations, right, that make them more vulnerable to a stress response, and cool nutrients and supplements can help that. So this is all why functional and naturopathic medicine is something I love to practice, because you see where people come in with all of these different issues and they get healthier and better in working with, the conjunction of their primary care. So that is my talk with you today on how stress causes your symphony of hormones to get hijacked, how essential oils can cool down cortisol and help with the progesterone and also help with balancing that orchestra of tunes again. And I want to talk with you about progesterone later in an upcoming video and article, because progesterone, it's one of the star hormonal players for fertility, but it's got a ton of other functions in all genders that are important. So I want to talk to you about progesterone, what optimal levels are, and natural ways to balance it. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Again, make sure you check out the resources in the video description. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank you for taking the time with me today to learn about your hormonal symphony and how to help balance the stress response. And I will wish you many blessings if you're watching this live in the upcoming year ahead and beyond, or whenever you're watching this. Take gentle care till we meet again.